What makes a pro athlete, international pro athlete, who has been studying abroad, Europe, the US, you could have stayed abroad. What made you come back to Egypt and bet on Egypt?
In May, we have
Yeah.
almost the biggest three tech summits here in Egypt.
What is it called? The summit? It's called Tech Summit?
No,
What's
no,
the name?
these are the biggest tech, three tech startup summits here. I felt that there's a very good team, a very good mind there. So I would like to build something with them. So this was my first intention for rapid mobility or coming back to Egypt. The economy here in Egypt is much more stable than the last 2-3 years.
Welcome to today's episode. Today we have the privilege of speaking with Muhammad Ehab, a distinguished figure in Egypt's entrepreneurial landscape. He is the founder of Entlaq Egyptian Entrepreneurship Ecosystem 2030. Muhammad brings a wealth of experience across diverse sectors such as e-mobility, robotics, and ride-sharing. Before his current role at Entlaq Holding, Mohamed was part of the founding team and head of operations at Rapid Mobility. His journey also includes significant stints in the US at Radi Dye Robotics, and which is a leading manufacturing entity in the e-mobility sector. Mohamed's academic background is equally impressive. He holds a bachelor's degree in mechanotronics engineering from the German University in Cairo, and he completed his bachelor's thesis in medical robotics at the University of Twente in the Netherlands. In addition to his professional endeavors, Mohamed is also a pro athlete and accomplished squash player. He's been playing for over 15 years, represented the Egyptian national team, and competed in international tournaments. Today, we're excited to delve into his journey, insights, and visions for the future of entrepreneurship in Egypt. Welcome, Mohamed.
Thank you, Mohamed.
Thank you.
So much.
It's great to have you here. I'm very honored and happy to have you here. Talk about what Entlaq is, about the recent report that you published, and your talks with the Egyptian government about the future of youth and entrepreneurship in Egypt. Let's start a little bit with your background, professional background, and what Entlaq is about, what it means, and what led you to start Entlaq.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for having me at your podcast. I'm Muhammad Ehab. My background is engineering background, coming from my background from the German University in Egypt. I studied mechatronics engineering, and I did part of my bachelor thesis in University of Twente in Netherlands. It was focusing on medical robotics. After my graduation, I joined a startup in US, which is called the Robotics. I was focusing on programming, machine learning, computer vision for everything around the sensors and camera and the fusion of all these sensors together. We were building a drone that is aiming for doing the inspections on the wind turbines instead of manual labor. I've been there almost 1.52 years. After that, I returned back to Cairo. Then I returned back to Cairo. We co-founded a startup called Rapid Mobility, which is a pioneer in Egypt when it comes to the electric vehicles, the electric bikes, electric scooters, and so on. We do ride sharing for everything, e-scooters and e-bikes. So you have all these e-scooters and e-bikes scattered around you. You have the application is telling you where is the nearest or closest one to you. You just ride the scooter or the bike, leave it anywhere from point A to point B. We were just solving the last mile, first mile transportation thing. So this was Rapid Mobility. I was leading the operations there for almost 3.5 or 4 years. After that, we started Entlaq. This is my professional career. Before my university, I was a professional squash player for almost 15 years. Started at the age of almost 5-6 years old. Till I was, I think, 22, 23 years old. I was in the national team. I represented Egypt in many international competitions in Netherlands, in Czech Republic, in France, in Germany, and so on. So yeah, squash has many common things with when it comes to entrepreneurship, especially when it comes to discipline.
Yeah.
Discipline on the court and discipline off the court. It is the same when it comes to entrepreneurship. So yeah,
that's
briefly. That was my last 15-20 years.
Yeah, it's very and I'm interested to know more about what makes a pro athlete, international pro athlete, who has been studying abroad, Europe, the US. You could have stayed abroad. What made you come back to Egypt and bet on Egypt? Create a in Egypt in a that was still new. I mean, you didn't go to the banking or other fields. You decided to create a start in the e-mobility. That's quite new. It's relatively new in Europe. Egypt is one of amongst the first few people who started.
Yeah.
Did you see what made you think like that? Do you see any potential for Egypt and the region? I'd like to jump into your mind and know how you saw this. What are opportunities?
When I left the startup in the US, it wasn't based on something like a solid idea what I was going to do in Egypt, but I met my other co-founders in Entlaq Holding, these brilliant minds and talent, leaving very fancy consulting firms in Dubai and London and coming back to Egypt to build something that they would like to add to Egypt for solving issues like the traffic and the transportation issues and so on. So I felt that there's a very good team, a very good mind there. So I would like to build something with them. So this was my first intention for Rapid Mobility or coming back to Egypt after my journey in the US. After that, the journey in Rapid Mobility was very tough regarding the fundraising, regarding the operations, regarding our expansions, but I think we built a success story and the team is still there building another success stories. We expanded to almost 7 cities in Egypt. After that, we tried to do the expansion for other international markets, especially North Africa.
Yes.
So we are trying now to expand to Morocco and so on. Yeah, this was the first, let's say, reason for coming back to Egypt. I felt that I would like to build something with these brilliant points. Yeah.
So these are partially personal reasons.
Yeah.
Because maybe I would say patriotic reasons as well. You want to come back to your homeland and also give back to the community. I understand.
Yeah.
But what would you say to someone? At our consulting company, we work with Western European and North American companies that would like to explore, like to expand to the Middle East. What would you say to someone who doesn't have roots in the region? Okay. Like from a strictly business point of view, are there opportunities in Egypt from a business strictly point of view?
From business point of view, now the economy here in Egypt is much more stable than just 2-3 years. When it comes to Egypt, we double down on 2 things. The most attractive 2 things in Egypt, which is the market and the talent. The market, for sure, we are the largest market regionally, based on the purchasing power of almost more than 110 million Egyptian citizens in Egypt. So this is a very big purchasing power, very big diversity when it comes to the income levels and so on. So there's a lot of opportunities for many solutions, especially tech solutions. The infrastructure when it comes to the internet and something like this is very good. So there's a very good solid base for any digitalization solutions or any tech tools and so on. The other thing is the talent. So we have a very big pool of talent, very well educated, very well when it comes to foreign languages. We have almost 3.5 million university students in Egypt, 26 million school year students. So this pool of students is creating this big pool of the talent. And at the same time, this talent is very affordable. Egypt is one of the much affordable countries in the world. I think we are almost in the top 20 affordable countries when it comes to the labor market. So yeah, the market and the talent, these are the two main things that Egypt is betting on now when it comes to expansion of businesses, expansion of investors, and so on.
Right. That's very interesting. And some of the that you just provided are in Entlaq's recent report. It's very interesting. One of the very interesting figures, I would like actually I would like you to walk us through the report. I will start with the percentage of youth, people under 50, 55.
30.
It was
35.
35.
Yeah.
But I've done the math, and I've seen if you add up the numbers, 90% of the Egyptian population is under 55. That's amazing as compared to Europe. I mean, in Europe is the aging population. It's crazy. But here, if you have 90% of the population under 50, because 50, I would say it's a new 40 or the new 35, because we live longer now. That's very interesting. How do you think that plays into the potential of Egypt? So you talked about education, but you talked about youth as well. So it's like a hub for HR talent. How do you think this is? What does that matter for Egypt, for the region, and then internationally for any investor? So why do these numbers matter?
Okay. Yes. So when it comes to youth, as you mentioned, youth in Egypt is a very big pool or percentage of the population here. Almost more than 60% of the population is under 35 years old. So you are talking about 65, 70 million Egyptian citizens are under the 35 years old, which is a very big pool. So we talked about the education of these youth, and we talked about the speaking foreign languages and infrastructure and so on and so on. So yes, these minds, let's say before 10 years, these minds, when they are graduating from university in Egypt, the first things that they are thinking about or looking for is having any jobs abroad. But now when you are providing tech solutions and providing very good environment for the tech startups and so on, so these tech startups are able to attack again on the retain these talents again. So you are not as before for the brain drain and so on, but now you can retain this talent and keep it in Egypt and making use of this talent.
Your Entlaq is, in addition to being a think tank, is a consulting company, but also it provides it's like it trains. It's a startup that other startups, right? You're providing training maybe and advice on how to build a successful startup. Now, you just mentioned the brain drain. How can we keep a balance between exporting, because it's part of the resource, so we have natural resources in Egypt. Egypt is a rich country in natural resources, but also human resources. What you're doing, don't you think it might help or lead to more brain drain because you're educating or helping educate the talent here that might later on leave the country? Or is it the other way around? What you're doing will help people build companies and stay next where you grew up. Like, are you doing both? Is both good for the economy? I remember off the camera we talked about as well currency It's good as well. One of the main income resources for the revenues for the country is the remittances, the money that's sent by Egyptians living abroad. That also is important for the economy. Can we do both? What's the best approach in your opinion?
Yeah.
And from you've talked as well to hundreds of entrepreneurs, startups in the country. I've seen the report you've met with extensively with the whole ecosystem. What's your professional and personal opinion on this? Okay.
So when it comes to what we are doing at Entlaq, we are doing both. We have the capacity building programs for the talent and the startups. So we are building these tech capabilities for the talent in Egypt, and at the same time we are doing this capacity building for the startups to make sure they are investment ready, and they know how to fundraise, they know how to build the business, they know how to market for their business, do the PR for their business, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
So when you are doing both, so you are creating this talent pool that will produce other startup co-founders, and at the same time will produce tech talent that will be injected into the tech scene in Egypt.
Right.
So we are doing both the supply and demand. So you have to keep this flow coming from the university, coming from the schools and so on, to build both startups and talent. Mm-hmm. So, and they will meet at a certain point. You need both, not only the supply, which is the startups and so on, but at the same time you have to build the demand.
How important is Egypt in the region, in the MENA region? Sources. We were talking about talent, and I think talent is one of the most important things that the country can have, because it all starts with knowledge in general, right?
Yes.
How important is it? I see there's many startups that start. You start here in Cairo, and then you expand to the Gulf states. Can you tell us? Do you have any numbers or any for someone who comes from outside of the region, who wants maybe to sell or expand across the region, why would hiring from Egypt be interesting?
Yes, hiring from Egypt is interesting because of, as I mentioned, the education, the languages, the affordability of this talent, and for sure the dedication and hard working of this talent for sure. And let's say mastering the tech capabilities that these talent have. So I think anyone is hiring is looking for the affordability, is looking for the education, and is looking for the tech qualifications. So and for sure the last most important thing for any co-founding team when it comes to founding stuff is the resilience. And I think the talent here in Egypt built a very solid resilience for the last 10-15 years as they overcome a lot of economical challenges and political challenges and so on. This is so important. So I think everything is available here for the talent to be hired in any foreign startups or corporates and so on. And I think when it comes to outsourcing talent, Egypt is the first in Africa when it comes to outsourcing talent, tech talent, all the contact centers and so on, all the multinational companies have.
I'd like to tap into this. You mentioned challenges, and there's always challenges and opportunities. I would like to start with the opportunities when it comes to that entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs have here, and then we can take a look at the challenges as well. What are the opportunities for a young Egyptian man or woman who just graduated and would like to start a business? What are the tools that the government or the ecosystem provide to them?
Yes.
And how does Entlaq, what's Entlaq's whole thing?
Yes. First of all, when it comes to, let's say, building a business, so the incorporation and so on, that's not an issue at all. It's very affordable for anyone to build a business and incorporate a startup and so on.
How many days does it take to ease a business?
Yeah,
in a week.
less than a week. He's a startup, same as everywhere. So it's very easy. So this is not the issue, and at the same time, it's very affordable. So and creating this, the founding team just want to build an app or something. So you just need some laptops and some internet and so on, and you are okay with that. So the affordability of failing or making mistakes is very affordable when it comes to comparison with other markets and so on. So you can build a business here, you can fail it, and you can try and iterate it, and build your business case here in Egypt, and after that you can expand much easier to other markets. The market here is very far away from any saturation point when it comes to the numbers of businesses expanding in any industry here. Even in the most trendy industries like fintech and so on, still we are much away from saturation. You have a population, as I mentioned, 110 million, so you are very far. So we have still a big room for expansions of other international startups to the Egyptian market, and at the same time building other Egyptian businesses to compete with the current already businesses or startups. So the market is still very open, still very far away from the saturation point, and the affordability of building a business and failing it and trying and iterating and so on. So this is very affordable. Also, as I mentioned regarding the talent, the affordability of the talent and the big pool of the talent that you would like to hire from.
Right.
Also, you are building here in the Egyptian market will make you very much resilient to expand to other markets. You know how to maneuver other markets, how to know the culture of other markets, especially in the region. It's very, how can I say it? Culture of other countries in the region is not that different from the culture in Egypt. So Africa, the region, and so on. So because of that, you see many Egyptian startups are a piece of cake to expand to other countries in the region or Africa and so on, which is in comparison to vice versa. So the startups which are expanding to Egypt from other countries seems to have some difficulty to expand here. So that's the thing.
I usually say that here in Egypt and the region, well, in MENA and Africa, you have 100 solutions to every problem. In the West and Europe, where I live, you have 100 problems to every solution. Like you freeze at the first because you grow up relying on the government. You think everything is well, so it's quite easy. It's a park. Here you have to think on your feet. You have to be very quick in dealing with issues, and you're used to it. So it's not a problem. You become creative, right?
Yes. And to add, which is the ecosystem. The ecosystem is very strong, but at the same time, everyone is well known in the community. So we have this kind of supportive ecosystem together. Everyone need any advice, the investment network, the consulting network, and so on.
They help each other.
You have this supportive mindset here. So this is very strong.
So you were saying that the ecosystem supports each other. People are trying to you support you to build up the ecosystem.
Yes.
Okay, and that's a positive thing. You don't see it in other.
No, it's already there, but it's very very strong here. We are emotional country, so
social as well.
We live on helping and supporting each other. So this also have been transformed to the ecosystem. So
Perfect. So before we dive into the report, I would like to talk, because in the report we have the index of ease of business, women empowerment, and different things. I would like to get your advice to a startup or a company in North America that would like to expand to the Middle East, especially to Egypt. What are the main fields where you could add or contribute to what's going on, to the exciting times that are taking place right now? What are the needs that Egypt, in terms of maybe training or other needs in different markets that Egypt has right now?
So the indices.
The industries,
Yeah.
and whether it's education or other industries, I would like to get your...
Okay.
Yeah.
For sure, the most trendy indices when it comes to investment in tech startups is fintech, e-commerce, logistics, and so on. When it comes to Egypt, so we follow this trend for sure, but at the same time, the economy here in Egypt has a very big potential when it comes to industry tech, industrial tech, agri-tech, when it comes to education, because as I mentioned, you have a very big pool in the education, 3.5 in the universities, 26 million in schools. So you have this very big pool. You have almost 60,000 schools in Egypt.
Wow.
Almost 93 universities in Egypt. So you have a very big pool of these educational entities and so on. So any educational tech solutions will have this big room for the opportunities here. So education, industrial tech, agri-tech, also the energy tech for sure, the green tech.
Clean energy or all types of...
Clean energy, solar...
Traditional?
Solar energy, wind farms, anything when it comes to water. What else? Green hydrogen for sure. So I think, yes, these are the 4 or 5 main indices. Besides the trendy indices, these are the indices that Egypt has a very big focus on and has very big potential for the future. Yeah.
Okay, so and these markets are not saturated yet, so it still needs maybe expertise or collaboration with
nothing here has reached the saturation point, even the fintech. Yeah.
Wow.
We have almost 70 million adults.
Yeah.
Almost 35% or 40% of them are unbanked. So and the more than of them are underbanked.
Yeah.
So for the fintech, you have a very big room still for this opportunity to expand here or build a business here. So,
No, I mean, it's interesting. I've seen quite a few initiatives in fintech industry for the unbanked, like Vodafone Cash, if I'm not wrong. But I'm sure it hasn't yet the whole market. So there must be other opportunities.
You know now, the banks here, the Egyptian banks, the private or the public ones, are using the fintech startups as reaching out tools or customer acquisition tools.
Oh, cool.
So because of the tech startups have these creative ideas to acquire the customers, so the financial institutions, instead of building other tools or solutions, they are partnering with these tech startups to expand their pool of customers.
Another thing that I found very interesting lately in Egypt is that the president of the country actually is talking about unconventional education. He's come out recently talking about the importance of learning tech programming. That's the future, and you don't have actually to go to uni or waste 4 years of your life learning something that is not going to be useful later on. That's very interesting actually, as if you look at other leaders in the West, they are not talking about this as much when they should be doing it. So I always see the glass half full, and I think that's a positive thing to discuss. You've recently met with the government to prepare the report and maybe to the government.
Exactly.
Can you please tell us about how it went, your meeting with the ministry, with the government, and then we start talking about different aspects of and why the report matters as well.
Okay, let's start with the report and going from that to why the government has an interest in some sort of this data and the report.
Perfect.
So the report is having this idea about creating a report that should be the main destination or gateway for anyone, entrepreneur or investor, expanding the Egyptian market and to understand the Egyptian components and Egyptian. So the technology sector has around, I think, 16.7 growth rate annually. What does that mean? Is that high on international?
Yes,
the technology sector and IT has the highest growth rate when it comes to the components of the GDP.
Compared to the other sectors?
Any other sectors. So it's very speedy when it comes to growth for the technology sector. So this is the second section, which is the macroeconomic overview.
Right.
The third one was ecosystem in numbers. So we have this tech scene in Egypt in numbers regarding the investments, the talent pool, which is almost around 50,000 working in the Egyptian tech startups.
Yeah.
You have investments, talent, you have the startup scene, everything in numbers, and the investments based on the indices in each startups category.
Yeah.
So this, when it comes to the third section, the ecosystem in numbers, the fourth thing which you mentioned is the Egyptian Entrepreneurship Index.
Yeah.
That we built something for it, first of its kind, which is called Egyptian Entrepreneurship Index, based on 8 minor metrics, including financial inclusion, social inclusion, private sector contribution, international organizations contribution, ease of doing business, cross-border capital mobility, the investment inflows for the VCs.
Yeah.
These are the 8 metrics that we created for the index. And this index was first of its kind to measure the performance of this ecosystem.
Right.
And it was based on primary data conducted through a survey based on the response of the tech startups here in Egypt.
How
and
many
the ecosystem players.
How many people did you meet with? It was quite a few, like hundreds.
Between 70 to 80 tech startups, starting from early stage startups to unicorns.
Okay.
It was a big survey, almost between, I think, 15 to 20 minutes for each startup. So yeah, so we have this score for each metric and these insights, and they are building up to create this whole index of the Egyptian Entrepreneurship Index. So this was the section. The fifth one was the policy recommendations based on all the key takeaways that we got from the survey, from the analysis of the macroeconomic overview, the analysis of the ecosystem, and so on and so on. So we have these policy recommendations, and the policy recommendations are divided into the 8 metrics. So when it comes to the policy government, we have the policy recommendations that will be reflected to more, let's say, incentives in the policy. When it comes to social inclusion, you have these policy recommendations. When it comes to financial inclusion, you have the policy recommendations that will be reflected to more financial inclusion for the unbanked and underbanked pool and so on. So yeah, this was the first report that we launched in last December. The government, when we met, had a big interest for this data because it was the first time to have all the challenges and opportunities have been listed in scientific terms and scientific, like you have primary data and secondary data. Primary data coming from the tech startups themselves, and the secondary data which is coming from other different sources. We presented the policy recommendations, we presented the key takeaways coming out from this report. We found that they are so interested for continuing these kind of reports. I hope that we can present every report that we are getting out from Entlaq to the Prime Minister as we did, or to the government and so on. Yeah, and regarding the other stakeholders like the investors and the startups, they found this report as I mentioned, the main gateway to understand the Egyptian ecosystem, because as we talked before off camera, like data accessibility here in Egypt is very rare, and it's at the same time is a cornerstone for any investor or entrepreneur to expand to the Egyptian market. Exactly. And you can't find this data. No. So when you find this just a report of 100 pages, making you understand everything here, describing the macroeconomic, showing you everything regarding the ecosystem, what are the trendy industries, what are the focus of the country when it comes to potential of each industry and so on, the initiatives, the governmental initiatives, the governmental incentives, the private sector contribution to the ecosystem, the collaborations, what are or which are the most active international organizations for the ecosystem here. It was a very proud moment for us when we saw this very good feedback when we launched the report. Yeah.
When did Entlaq start? When did you create it?
Entlaq in Jan 2023.
June 20. Okay, and so this report, the recent report you're talking about, is it the first report or the second, or?
This is the first edition of our biannual sector diagnostics report. The second edition will be in June. So we have 2 editions annually, one in June and the other one in December.
Yeah, I was very, impressed by the report that you shared with me the other day when we had coffee. And it's really, I think that kind of reports are crucial for anyone who wants to do business, whether you come from abroad or whether you're coming from here, because then it's data, so you can make decisions based on data. It's data-driven decisions. It's super important. In the report, one of the also numbers that actually caught my attention was that social inclusion for women was a bit higher than for men, but this is something that maybe you can look deeper into, which usually it's against the stereotypes about a country in the Middle East, right? It's not, I know the region very well, I have roots here, but it was very interesting to see how women empowered, that women have a strong position in contrary to what many people might think in the West. Can you give us some maybe interesting insights that not many people know about that the report highlights?
I don't remember if these numbers are at or not, but 13% of the co-founders of tech startups here in Egypt are female. And the global benchmark is not far from this number. So we are almost the same as the global benchmark. What you are talking about is that the women responding to the survey is giving higher numbers or higher score for the social inclusion than the men themselves, which is a little bit confusing, but this is the cause of having a report, that you are validating everything in the research and data. So these are their responses and these are their thoughts about everything when it comes to the social inclusion. So I think we have been through a very good empowerment for the women here, especially in the tech startups and the business side for the last 10 years. I think we still have a long way to go. And by numbers, as we are talking, the World Bank is, I think, 2 years ago, had this report around that if we did a proper empowerment for women in the business scene, the GDP may have this increased percentage by about, I think, 34%, just by women empowerment. So yeah, there's still a long way to go, but we are on track, especially when it comes to the tech scene and the business scene and so on and so on. So yeah, one step at a time, I think we were in a very good position.
Any other data highlighted in the report that might seem surprising, but to an outsider, or positive maybe data that that gives hope? Because I see many data, but maybe there's one or two that we should focus on, like that these are opportunities as well.
As we're talking about the tech ecosystem or startups ecosystem, so for the last 5-6 years, the ecosystem here in Egypt has fundraised more than $2 billion USD have been injected in the Egyptian startups. All of them, most of them are FDIs, which is coming from foreign investors, believing in the Egyptian talents or Egyptian founders of these startups. We have 3 unicorns. One of them is here in the EGX or the Egyptian stock market.
What is it called? Fawri?
Yes, the other one, which is called Swivel, which is already in Nasdaq, and the third one is Halan, that raised more than 700 or 800 million USD.
All the above are fintech, right? Fintech companies, most of them.
Fawi is fintech, Halen is fintech, Sovel it's a transportation startup. Yeah.
Wow.
So and all of them are Egyptian founders. All of them started from the Egyptian market, and the unicorns from a market that started. So we have already seen unicorns here in Egypt. One of them is in the public Egypt stock market already, which is Fawi. The other one is Sovel, which is already in Nasdaq.
Yeah.
Third one, which is Halen. So yeah, have these success stories and these unicorns and the big startups here in Egypt will create other co-founders that will create other unicorns and other big startups and so on and so on. So we have to keep the flow from the upper side. We have to support them. We have to maintain their course. We have to make good progress, and at the same time we have to keep the flow from downside, which is coming from universities, coming from the talent to create more ideas, to create more startups and so on. So yeah, that is the thing, goal. That is the most to do thing.
Yeah. Was that one of the key recommendations that the report provided to the government? What are the main recommendations that you guys gave to the Egyptian governments in the report, thanks to the data that you ran research?
There are already some recommendations that have been implemented, like having one entity focusing on the strategic approach for the Egyptian startups, and the Prime Minister have created this permanent entrepreneurship unit under the supervision of the Prime Minister, and it is have been headed by President of GAFI, which is the General Authority of Foreign, and this unit is already having all the governmental stakeholders that have the mandate for the entrepreneurship. The Ministry of Financial Corporation, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Telecommunications, the Central Bank of Egypt, Ministry of Planning and Economic Development. So yeah, all the governmental stakeholders are now on the same table, focusing on the strategy for these tech scene and tech startups.
Yeah.
So this is a very big step forward for the ecosystem, and it has already a very good feedback from the ecosystem. So this was one thing. The other thing is focusing on mainly the communication between the government and the startups, and being more of building this bridge between the government and the startups and the investors, and understanding their needs, understanding their demands, and building on them other solutions. Also, data accessibility is very important. Same as bridging the data between the incentives and the regulations and startups. So having this understanding bridge for the startups to understand the incentives which are already implemented in the regulations or the Egyptian regulations. Also the geographic inclusion, because 92% of the startups are only in or raised from the capital Cairo. So we need a very big focus on the geographic inclusion outside Cairo. We have 27 governorates. Already ministers like Ministry of International or Ministry of Telecommunications have almost 18 creative hubs in 18 different governorates. We have to build other talent hubs, tech hubs, and so on and so on. We have to give more incentives for businesses operating in other governorates, geographic inclusion, education material when it comes to entrepreneurship. So we have to inject the entrepreneurship in at least the university education. So yeah,
that's very good. And so these were the recommendations that you gave the government. And I think as well in the data is very important. I think there's a lot of potential as well for companies that work on data as well to work here. I mean, there's a big void that can be filled by many companies that are related to data privacy as well, data collection, all these things. Now I would like us to talk about Entlaq, about current exciting, is there anything exciting projects or collaborations that you're working on?
Yeah.
And also looking forward, what are the vision for the next 5 years for Entlaq? Let's talk about the exciting projects that are current in Egypt, but in the region as well.
We at Entlaq has this strategic vision, which is coming from building an ecosystem based on what we call as triple I vision or triple I strategy. That everything or every program or every project that we are doing has to be based on impact, innovation, and inclusion. As I told you before, that innovation that you are creating this environment that is supporting any kind of innovation and creativity, whether in educational, let's say universities, schools, and so on, or post-graduation. So this is when it comes to innovation. Inclusion, you have to build this environment on social inclusion and geographical inclusion. You have to include all the stakeholders in the decision making and so on. You have to include or you have to provide all and same resources to all the governorates. You have to provide all the resources to all the talent pool, not only in the capital of Cairo, but you have to provide it for all the governorates. And social inclusion, for sure, you have to include or provide all the resources to whether women empowerment, whether let's say other social classes and so on.
Social mobility, you mean like how you can maybe move up or down, or you mean you're targeting different social classes, like all of them? You're serving all of them.
Yes, the main concept here when it comes to social inclusion is providing the same resources to all talent pool.
Like equal opportunities, you mean?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The third thing, which is impact, is putting every project or everything we do in numbers to measure the impact, and after that we assess this impact, and after that we iterate.
Yeah.
Then we do it again.
Right.
So this is when it comes to impact. So everything should be impact driven, and sustainability when it comes to this impact. So we are not only doing this project or this cycle of program, but how we can sustain it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what we build for our triple I vision. When it comes to how we do it, we do it through empowering the talent or having data-driven solutions. We do it whether for the talent or the data. So I think the most exciting stuff that we are doing is when it comes to the research and the reports. We have this flagship report or flagship product, which is the biannual report. And we keep it as it is, and we build it, and we will much more of better expansion for it moving forward, to keep it as the main gateway for the Egyptian ecosystem for any investor or startup expanding to the market. Other than that, we have other sector-specific reports. So we have another agri-tech report that will be launched in May, inshallah. Other than that, we have capacity building programs with the private sector. We have capacity building programs with the international organizations.
Us a few. Is there, unless it's classified, unless you don't want to share, is there any like, what are the main, the most exciting projects that you're currently, or collabs maybe? Are you collaborating on a international level, regional level?
Yes, I think one of the most exciting collaborations currently is mainly international, result into building talent hubs here in Egypt, in Cairo and in other governorates.
Right.
Other one is building a crowdfunding platform. Also, these are the most exciting stuff that's coming for the next 3 to 4 months. Yeah, that's it.
And do you have the long term? I guess the long term vision is to serve the country, to being for data.
Yes.
Or, I'm sure you have like future plans, like you're not staying at where you are.
Yeah, for sure. So for us at Entlaq, the main goal is being a success factor for the Egyptian ecosystem. building these bridges between us and the other markets, between us and the government and the international organizations, so on. So yeah, and I think there's still a long way to go. Yeah, data expertise and the research part is our edge, but still not know how the other next collaborations will be. Producing for us.
So, no, you're very lucky to be someone, based in Europe. I feel like the market here is more dynamic.
Yeah.
Every morning when you wake up, there are opportunities and challenges. You never know what's coming next, whether it's positive or negative, but I think it's all positive.
Yes.
But all right, just final question. What do you get up in the morning? What drives you in life in general?
I think Entlaq and the big ambition that we have at Entlaq.
Yeah.
And almost now we have been through, I think, more than 400 days. I think never we have the same day in these 400 days. So every day is with new projects, new opportunities, new goals, new dreams, and so on. But we are doing it one step at a time, focusing what we have now, and after that. Yeah.
So it's Entlaq that drives you in life, as drives.
I have big loyalty when it comes to some projects that I am working on. I have this big loyalty to Entlaq. So
that's good.
Entlaq envisioned for the years is the same as what I envision for myself.
Yeah, I love this because this is really the pro athlete mindset. There's no work-life balance. You're actually doing what you're passionate about, what you really believe in, and this is your life. Yes. So there's no divide between both. Okay, exactly. Thank you so much, Mohamed, for being with us today. I really look forward to maybe part 2 to talk about the next report. As you mentioned, it's coming out in June.
Yes.
It will talk about the state of the economy, startup.
Yeah.
Okay, any exciting conferences happening in the next few days, next months in Egypt or in the region that you're participating at?
Yeah, I think in May we have almost the biggest 3 tech summits here in Egypt.
What is it called? The summit? It's called Tech Summit?
These are the biggest tech, 3 tech startup summits in Egypt.
Yeah.
The first one is Startup Without Borders, I think in next week.
Right.
The second one is Rise Up Summit, which is the biggest entrepreneurship summit in the Middle East. The third one is Tech Me Summit. So these are the biggest tech summits here in Egypt. So yeah.
And you guys are going to be there.
Yeah, for sure.
Delivering your expertise.
We have collaborations with each one in different projects. So we will announce other different projects in each summit.
Cool. So, that's why you didn't want to really share too much about the projects. You're keeping them a surprise.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, but this is very good, and I think you're a good starting point. Like no summit can talk about the future of entrepreneurship without reliable coming from on the ground.
Yes.
Yeah.
Data is a solid base that you can talk.
Definitely, and it's something very rich because I remember 15 years ago I came here. I was working on an entrepreneurship project, and one of the main challenges that I had actually was finding reliable data online or data anywhere on the ecosystem. So congratulations.